150, 160. He's gone.
What's up, guys? Today we are on this 2008 Buell 1125R, and I think this is a rather attractive bike, so cue up the walk around. Alright, now that you guys know what this bike looks like, let's just talk about everything, really, because this bike is really unique in the sense that it was really engineered as a last hurrah by Eric Buell before he was unceremoniously kicked on his ass by Harley Davidson. This bike was only made for 2 years, and he basically took as few Harley parts as he could and made a real sports bike with the time that he had left. This bike is really an outlier because if you look at the XB9 and XB12 that Buell put out before this bike, they were based on the Sportster engine. And as a result, they didn't really rev, they didn't really breathe. They weren't bad bikes, they were just kind of underpowered and didn't really have sports bike characteristics because they took, you know, the heart and soul out of an entry-level cruiser and attempted to make a sports bike out of it. Although we're not even going to talk about the Buell Blast, which is generally considered to be the shittiest bike ever made. The heart and soul of any bike is this engine. And in this case, we have an oil and air cooled 1125cc V-twin at 45 degrees that was built custom for Eric Buell by Rotex in Austria. And if you're not familiar with Rotex, give them a look. They are basically one of the most elite engine builders in the world. They do a lot of small production, custom type bikes. They do nothing but make engines. And the engine and transmission in here are built by Rotex for Buell. Officially, this bike puts out something in the 140 horsepower range with about 75 to 80 pound-feet of torque. I would say those numbers are probably on point, but they're not really as dramatic as they kind of seem. The bike doesn't throw you back as something with almost 150 horsepower should, because the torque curve is so broad and you're going so much faster than you realize you're going until you look down and you're like, holy crap, I'm in triple digits. And you get this noise that just screams massive V-twin, and so it lets you just romp on it, and this bike feels like it's always in the power band. But really, once you get over $4,000, everything from there on is just gravy. The engine uses a belt drive in traditional Harley/Buell fashion and drives a rear pulley. This bike is really defined, though, by kind of its technological achievements. The stuff that makes it uniquely a Buell, if you will. The first is the ridiculous front brake arrangement, where you have a single rotor mounted to the outside of the rim and one 8-piston 4-pad brake caliper. It's exceptionally touchy, especially with these race pads I have in it, especially when it's cold. It's very grabby, it really slows you down. But what it was designed to do is it reduces weight, unsprung weight in the front considerably, because that single rotor weighs less than 2 duals and provides comparable surface area. And because it's mounted to the outside of the wheel, which is reinforced anyway, you don't have to spend extra ounces reinforcing the hub of the wheel, which is where a lot of weight is centered in other bikes. And by doing this, Eric managed to lower the unsprung weight on the front considerably over a standard setup. Now this bike uses a 47mm Showa front fork, inverted front fork. Nothing really exemplary about it, except for the fact that it's mounted almost perfectly vertically. The rake angle on this bike is pretty ridiculous, and what that does is it gives you extremely sharp handling, and there's enough trail on the bike, which is it's long enough, its wheelbase is steady enough that you actually don't get very much jitters. Normally on a bike like this, with an angle like that in the front, you'd find that it's very agile but very unstable at speed. Well, this bike really integrates the best of both worlds. and is very stable under speed. Also, the extended swing arm gives you, it's not extended, it's just the factory swing arm is a little bit longer than you'll find on other bikes, and it really helps you put all that torque down to the contact patch you have on the rear wheel. But this front brake is really, in my opinion, what sets this bike apart. It is just so aggressive and so sharp, and you have to be very careful with it. But the truth is, this bike won't fold up underneath you. It'll stop you like a motherfucker. I did that on a couple of stoplights just for fun. I mean, it'll stand the back end right up and flip it over if you're not careful. Boom. I don't know if the camera can catch me getting thrown up like that. Oh, and I stalled it. Thrown up like that by the bike, but that was a little stoppy there. And the bike's got so much torque that you can just kind of start in second or third gear or whatever that was, and it just takes it. The other thing I find that's really nice about this bike is sixth gear is tall enough that you can really cruise on it. You know, at 50, 60 miles an hour, you're down to 3,500 RPM in top gear, which makes highway trips not too bad on this bike. It's not very jittery, it's very stable. You got plenty of roll-on power, especially once you hit $4,000. And the bike really doesn't have a whole lot of downsides. But I should mention that there are a few. Let's talk about ergonomics for a little bit. The seat is really flat and really hard. You know, obviously it was designed in a specific way. It gives you a lot of space, lets you get up high up on the bike to make sure that you can really lay the bike down in the corners without catching anything. The downside is it's probably not very comfy for more than, 50 or 60 miles. The rider position is actually interesting. The triangle is pretty open. I'm a little tight on my legs, but it's not bad. This bike has amazing mid-range punch, but the other thing that I find that's kind of a negative on this bike is the seat height. It's got a really tall seat. I don't know what the official measurement is, but it's probably around 32 or 33 inches. And that's pretty high. And so I am 6 foot, I have a 32-inch inseam, and I can just barely flat foot this bike in the right situation, but mostly I'm up on my tiptoes a little bit. And it's not bad. The bike is really well balanced. It's really stable, so you never find yourself kind of, struggling to support it on one leg. But it is something to keep in mind. This is not a everyman bike. This is not a Japanese production bike that was designed, to fit 99.9% of the people on the market. This is a bike that was made for the 1%, by the 1%. And in this case, we're not talking about 1% money. We're talking about the people that are absolutely uncompromising in what they want in their bike. And this is that bike. It is really designed. No expense was spared. Everything was engineered, discussed, measured, redone until it was perfect, until it was set up in such a way that you knew that every decision that was made for a reason. There's nothing on this bike where you look at it and you're like, that's kind of arbitrary. No, everything was discussed, everything was boiled down, every choice was evaluated, and only the best made it through. And I find that really appealing about this bike. I wouldn't go so far as to say this is an everyday bike. You probably could daily it. I don't think that you're going to have quality issues or anything like that. But it is pretty rough. It is kind of rowdy. It's not real happy sitting in traffic. It's not real happy sitting still in general. And it really likes to be ridden. And it's really more of a weekend toy than I would say a daily driver. The other thing is the underbody exhaust really cooks your right leg, like really badly. Today it's 50 degrees or so outside, and my right ankle is about to call uncle. I actually have to kind of shift it forward a little bit right on my heel so that I can get a little bit more airflow past the ankle and keep it cool. Now, if you have the factory exhaust, you may not have as much of an issue, but a lot of the custom aftermarket exhausts, like the one on this bike, sit right under the engine for mass centralization, and you know, there are trade-offs on everything. And this bike is without compromise, I feel. Everything was done for the, you know, for the good of the project, and anything that exemplified weakness was cut. And I feel like that's how Eric Buell kind of looked at this project, and in a lot of ways, it makes me really want to get my hands on one of the new Buells. The thing is, on this bike, you really have to be a confident rider. It smells weakness, and it will devour you. You got to learn to trust the front brake. It's kind of weird. It's not nearly as linear or smooth as you'd find on sports bikes, but you know, you just got to learn how to trust it and use the front and rear brakes together. Overall, I would say this bike is awesome. It is the final line on a man's resume where he doesn't care about the bean counters, he doesn't care about any of that anymore. He just set out to build the best bike he could, and I would be proud to have my name on this bike. It is a phenomenal bike. In terms of money, this bike will set you back about $5,500 to $6,000, depending on its condition. A few things to look out for are going to be fried electronics, blown fork seals, lack of maintenance, because it requires a little bit of thought. This bike has a very complex electronic system, requires a special cable and software to reset the programming. So you're going to find a lot of bikes that have, you know, are 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 miles past their service because the guy who did the service couldn't figure out how to reset them. That's not that big of a deal as long as you want to make sure that the bike has in fact been maintained. The other downside is parts, while not particularly expensive, are going to have to be ordered. I have a Harley dealer close to me that actually still has their Buell sign up, and they didn't have any parts for this bike, and so if they're not going to have anything, chances are nobody's really going to have anything available, so you're going to be ordering it. Food for thought, I found that the prices are much better at my local Harley dealer than they are on eBay or on Amazon or anything like that. So your mileage may vary on that one. I'm not really sure if that was just these guys are cool or what, but something to keep in mind. All in all, this is definitely a bike for a motorcycle connoisseur. This is not for the everyday guy. If you want to go to bike meets and stuff and do burnouts on your Gixxer 600, this is not the bike for you. Just move right along. It's going to cost you way too much money. It's going to require way too much effort, and you're just not going to be able to handle it very well. But if you're at that point in your kind of motorcycling career, if you will, that you're looking for something unique, you're looking for something that you're not going to find in every garage, and or you have a penchant for something that at least has an American name on it, because guess what? Engine was built in Austria. Pretty much the rest of this motorcycle was built in Japan. So it's not very American, but you know, it has an American name, and for some people that's important. All in all, I would say this is an excellent bike, but this is going to be at the end of the spectrum. This is the bike you get when you've had pretty much everything else and you want something that's a talking point, something that's unique, something that is hard to find and very original. In terms of how I would rate it, I would say that this is probably a 6 out of 10 in terms of a daily driver. It's probably a 5 out of 10 in terms of a long-distance commuting bike. Probably a 7 or a 7.5 on the track. You're not going to be as fast as some of the Japanese bikes, but you're going to have the best sound, and you're going to have the most fun. Really, I think this is a go down to the bars kind of bike, ride it on the weekend kind of bike, park it 5 days out of the week kind of bike. That's where it really excels. It's really more of a toy than, I would say, a vehicle. But it has an amazing sound, amazing power, and I am really, really smitten with this bike. To me, it and I share a lot of the same characteristics, and I really like it. So that's really all I have for you guys. If you have the opportunity to ride one of these, do it. If you have the opportunity to buy one of these and you think you're at that point in your life where you're ready to have something like this, absolutely go for it. It's not for everybody. I'm just going to say that out front. It is not a bike that's for everybody. It's got a number of little weird quirks that you're going to have to deal with over the course of its ownership, like the fact that this front brake is super duper touchy. But if you're willing to put up with its shenanigans, it's kind of like that beautiful redheaded girl. Fun in bed, doesn't make that great of a wife. That's what this bike is. This is the beautiful redhead of the motorcycle world. It's right up there with that MV Augusta I had in terms of oh my god factor and just sensationalism. Not very good day in, day out. That said, like I said, if you have the opportunity to own one of these bad boys, jump on it if you can afford it. If not, put it in the back of your mind. I guess they're either going to go up or they're going to go down. I think they're going to go up. I think the longer you hang on to it, the longer these haven't been made, they're going to start getting a little bit more collector attention. But what the hell do I know? My stock portfolio is pretty shit. So that's all I got for you guys. I hope you've enjoyed this review. Make sure subscribe, leave me some comments. I do my best to get back to everybody. Other than that, peace.